shy away from this, but it is just so good to be back and have something in my hand and in person and be here with all of you that I'm going to call this meeting to order. At 11:32, it is our first in-person meeting in at least 18 months. And I am so very grateful to be in this room with all of you here, as well as I thank those of you who are watching our meeting afterward in the comfort of your living room, which is a good positive change. My name is Judy Hart, and I am serving as this year's P-CCS Parent Council President. I'd like to take a moment also to have our new officers, since this is our first meeting of this school year, I'd like to take a moment to have our officers introduce themselves. Our Vice President, Pam Cornell-Allen, could not be here today. She does incredibly critical and difficult work with at-risk teens in the Ypsilanti and Ann Arbor area. But we are just grateful to have her as our Vice President. She has enrolled a high school and a middle school student this year as well. And we will see her next meeting, I'm sure. And then we'll just go to my right here. I'll get each of you to introduce yourself.
And if I could remind everybody, since we're recording now, you do need to speak into the microphone.
Oh.
So we're all sure everybody.
Are they already on?
Yeah, right.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you, Nick.
Of course.
Hello, everyone. My name is Antoinette Jackson, and I am our membership coordinator of the P-CCS Parent Council this year. I'm so excited to be here. We have an awesome board. I have 3 children in the P-CCS district. I have a high schooler at Salem High School. He's in ninth grade. I also have a 6th grader at Liberty Middle School, and I have a 2nd grader at Dotson Elementary School. So, you see me everywhere.
Hi, my name is Anne Marie Garrity. I'm the corresponding secretary, so I'm the one that sent you the emails about this meeting. So here's my face if you want to know what I look like. I have 2 kids in the district, a 5th grader at Farron Elementary and a 3rd grader at Gallimore Elementary School.
Andrea Schultz, I am the recording secretary this year, and I have a 9th grader at Canton, so I'm new to high school, and that's exciting. And then I have a 7th grader at Discovery.
I just want to thank our board this year. Andrea, as well as our Vice President Pam, have served for several years with us in the past, and I appreciate them staying on and hanging with us during this difficult time for everyone, where, you know, when you're choosing what to do with your time right now very critically. And I also want to thank Antoinette and Anne Marie coming on again at a time when people are really choosing what to do with their time right now. We really appreciate their energy and their new perspective. We're really appreciating it. So thank you to our board. This is a brand new time for us. We, in the past, before this first 18 months, historically our meetings have always been on Friday mornings at 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And I would say, much like everyone else, this pandemic has given us a moment to take a look and see how are we better able to connect with our parents, better able to connect with our families and our caregivers of our P-CCS students. So this is our very first meeting that we are doing. We're trying to connect with a lunchtime time, so that maybe at some point working parents might be able to come on here, or parents who normally aren't available at that, first time period. So on the back of our agenda, we have a list of times which the rest of our meetings, and we just try to give parents a variety of times that we will be meeting. Our first 2 meetings will be on Fridays at 11:30. We have a few evening meetings, which I know parents have asked for. And we have a couple on Thursdays at 9:30, as well as trying to just hit different days of the week. So hopefully we can connect with as many parents and a variety of parents and families as we can. Just before we get to a few of our parent council details and the approval of our old minutes, I also want to recognize our administrative officers officers, Nick Brandon, who of course helps us both technologically and otherwise just make these meetings happen, so thank you for being here. Superintendent Monica Merritt, who will be here later on. I saw Debbie P.S., who is our officer, our financial officer for our district, and Gretchen, who always drops everything to be with us and gives us, she's our executive director of our Educational Excellence Foundation here at the district. And of course, our valued speakers today, I have our new nursing, pardon me, I'm gonna get this correct, school health specialist and nurse manager this year. She's gonna be giving us perspective on our back to school health and safety and how things have been going this first month and what we can do as parents and families to help our students just make a positive impact, keep us safe, keep us successful. And we really appreciate Patrice Williams being here. We also, for that, kind of going back to 2020 and seeing what our good news can bring us, Tim Grushinsky, did I get that correct?
Yep.
He's going to be giving us some updates on our P-CCS Bond 2020, which I know seems so long ago, but will hopefully be our good news in these next coming years as far as the new school improvements, both structurally as well as different aspects of our district. And like I mentioned, Superintendent Monica Merritt will be here as well. I'd like to, our old minutes are being sent up here just as we are speaking. I will turn the floor to Andrea Schultz to take attendance. And I'd like to ask those parent council representatives or PTO leaders who are watching at home, if in order to let us know that you are watching and that you are also going to be communicating the information to your schools, if you could email us at parentcouncil@pccs-k12.com, and that'll be our attendance for those school reps who couldn't be here but are watching later on. Thank you very much.
Okay, so just give me a here or present if I say your school and you're here as a parent or representative of the school. Bentley, Bird, Dodson,
Here.
Erickson, Farron,
Here.
Field,
Here.
Gallimore,
Here.
Hoban, Pulsing, Isbister, Miller, Smith, Tonda,
Here.
Workman, I'm with Discovery, East, Liberty,
Here.
Pioneer,
Here.
West, I'm from Canton and Plymouth, Salem,
Here.
and Starkweather. Great, thank you.
We are going to go over, I was just saying, Antoinette, to get the copies of our old minutes, so we will move the approval of our old minutes to later in our meeting. And so what we will do here is, Patrice, if you're ready, we will have our school health specialist and nurse manager, Patrice Williams, just kind of give us a little presentation on back to school and how our health and safety of our students looks this year. Thank you for being here.
All right. So good morning, my name is Patrice Williams. As has been communicated, I am in a new role this year. I am, and I still have to look at my title sometime myself. So I am the school health specialist and nurse manager. Coming into the pandemic last year, we had about 4.6 nurses employed by the district. Our district has been very responsive in meeting our student and staff needs during this pandemic. And I am happy to say this year we started the school year with 10 full-time nurses and a nurse manager. Our district has also hired healthcare techs in each of our buildings so that they can manage our sick, supervised isolation clinics, and make sure that we're following all of the guidelines and the protocols from the Wayne County Health Department. So this year in my office, I'm at West Middle School, and our nurses have up to 3 buildings. In the past, we've had nurses with 6 buildings. So I'm very happy and proud of our district's response to this pandemic, and making sure that we're being a lot more proactive than reactive. And so one of the things that I wanted to share with this group was our toolbox. We've been working since last year to make sure that we keep current information available to our families and our community regarding COVID-19 and how we're managing that in school. So from our district website, if you'll look at the screen, from our district website, you can access our toolbox in a couple of ways. One way is as the banner changes, there is a banner here where you can access our toolbox, your family's one-stop resource for all COVID-19 guidelines, our screening tools, and our protocols. You can also access this information if you go to Departments, Health and Safety, and you see a link here for COVID-19 Toolbox. And in our toolbox, we've come a long way. Last year we had a lot of information, a lot of valuable information, but things got a little hard to manage. This year we've kind of tried to put information in blocks where it makes sense and it's easy to follow. So our guidelines, our mitigation protocols, everything we do to manage COVID in our schools is found in this toolbox. We started this latest news, even though it's not that latest, but it is the latest news that we have. So as you'll see, some of it has not been updated since August 27th, but it is the most recent and up-to-date information on our district's mitigation guidelines and plans. We have up top, we have the district's guidelines and our mitigation guidelines. Everything is, hyperlinks where you can access it directly from the website. So you will see what our P-CCS COVID-19 mitigation guidelines are. In addition, we have information directly here from the Wayne County Health Department. And everything that we do in our district, for the most part, is from the Wayne County Health Department. As you know, the CDC sets standards for the country. Then we have our Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, who sets standards for the state. And then each county, depending on what numbers look like in the county, set county-specific standards. So we, by and large, follow the guidelines of the Wayne County Health Department. There are times that they refer us directly to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So in those instances, of course, we follow the MDHHS guidelines as well. So in this section, we have our public order that mandated masks in school. For example, we also have our screening tools. And so last year and this year, we're asking each person that comes into our building, whether they're a student or a visitor, and staff, that they will screen at home for symptoms that might be suggestive of COVID. And so this is probably not new to anyone in our community, but if you are screening daily and you answer yes to any of the symptoms in box 1, so if you have any symptoms that are new, unusual, or worsening, and they're in box 1, then we give guidance right here that you should stay home. So a big part of us mitigating COVID in our buildings is to make sure that if you're sick, if you're ill, that illness management part of it, that you stay home. When we have students who don't report to school and we have no reason why they didn't report to school, part of our mitigation guidelines are as well that we're doing that illness management follow-up. So we're calling families to find out if your student's not at school, can you give us a little more information why they might not be at school, and if they're in fact ill with symptoms that are suggestive of COVID, then we're giving guidance on what they should do next. So the screening tool plays a big part in mitigating COVID in our schools. We have the same screening tool for staff, and then we have the updated guidance from Wayne County Health Department on once you've been exposed to the virus, what your next steps are. So there are times that if you are exposed, close contact means that you're less than 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes. That definition has not changed. But what has changed is that you may or may not need to quarantine. So we know by and large that children are safe in school when they're at least 3 feet apart and both students are masked. So students may be exempt from quarantining if they're in the classroom, both students are 3 feet apart and both parties are masked. However, they've still been exposed because they're less than 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes. So a part of our mitigation guidelines again this year is still informing families your child has been exposed, but they may or may not need to quarantine. Also, there are quarantine guidelines if the student is vaccinated, whether or not they need to quarantine. There's guidelines on whether or not you have a positive PCR test, and you have to have a molecular test, and as long as we have proof of a positive PCR within 5 months, even if you've been exposed, again, you may be exempt from quarantine. The theory behind that is that the body should have enough antibodies to fight a reinfection. So there are times that, we may contact families and inform you that your student has been exposed, but they may or may not be required to quarantine. And again, we get all of this guidance directly from the Wayne County Health Department. This was huge for us this year. This is our mitigation plan in an infographic. And basically the way that we are mitigating COVID and keeping our families and students and staff safe is by making sure that we're physically distancing, our ventilation systems, our cleaning practices, our illness management, which I spoke about already, our daily screening I spoke about as well, and our contact tracing. And so these are things that we're doing daily to make sure that we're keeping all of our staff, students, and our entire community safe. In addition, we have information on the right side regarding our masking requirements for indoors. And I will show you where the transmission rates are found. Everything again is on the website. We are trying to be as transparent as possible and provide our families with as much information and the tools you all need to make the best decisions for your family. So again, daily health practices, we're just asking for the daily screening. That's not something we're collecting. We're trusting families that before you send your children to school, that you have already screened them and that they're not ill. If your child has symptoms that are suggestive of COVID, we have guidelines here as well as to what families should do. And remember, those symptoms that are suggestive of COVID could be 2 symptoms. Of course, if they have difficulty breathing or one of those telltale signs of loss of taste or smell, you might want to contact your providers sooner. But by and large, if they have 2 symptoms that are listed on that daily screening, then we absolutely are asking that you stay home, that you contact your medical providers, and then that we will give you guidance from there. Generally speaking, if you have symptoms that are suggestive of COVID, families have a few options. Number 1, you can opt to keep your kids home for 10 days from symptom onset. So we know by day 10, most people are no longer contagious, and so they're safe to be at school or at work again or in the community. So you can opt to keep your child home for 10 days, and then they would return to school on day 11. A second option would be absolutely follow up with your medical provider, and if their symptoms are due to something other than COVID, we just need a medical clearance for your child to return to school. And so we've had that happen before. You may have congestion and a headache, for example, and it's a sinus infection, it's not COVID. So we'll have you'll have your doctor write a note saying that they're cleared to be in school with a sinus infection and they're not communicable. That is absolutely fine, and we accept that for students to return. Or you can opt to have a PCR test. Now, by and large, we don't accept antigen tests, which are rapid tests. They're just not, they are becoming more reliable, but they are not the definitive diagnostic test that's recognized by Wayne County Health Department. So when we ask for a child to be tested, it has to be a molecular test, which is the PCR test. There's other names for them. You might see MAAT, and there's some other names. But if you're in doubt, talk to your school nurse. PCR test is what is acceptable as diagnostic. One of the other things that we did as a department is when students have chronic health conditions that might be suggestive of COVID. So maybe your child has migraines, and so maybe they have chronic headaches or they have allergies. And so when those symptoms could look like COVID, we've sent letters to all of the pediatricians in the Canton, Ann Arbor, Northville area saying that please work with your families, our students who have chronic health conditions that might be suggestive of COVID, and provide a letter to the school so that if those children present to our school offices or clinics with symptoms that are suggestive of COVID, we would not, one, put them in an isolation room, or two, exclude them, because we have on file that they have these chronic health conditions. So I would encourage parents as well to continue to work with your providers to provide those letters to our school if that applies to your child. And then the next section is if your child gets sick while at school. So we do have students who, you know, could have been fine when they left home and they show up to school and they have symptoms that are suggestive of COVID. We have our healthcare techs, our nursing department, and our school offices. We all work together, the office staff, to make sure that we're contacting those families and we're giving appropriate guidance. More often than not, if the child has symptoms that are suggestive of COVID, we will request that you pick the child up, and then you have those three options. They can stay home, they can see a provider and return with the clearance, or you can have them tested, PCR tested. And if a student or staff member tests positive for COVID-19, so we have a couple of forms here right online where if you click the link, it will provide a form here, and you can go right to this form, submit the information, and it will be emailed automatically to your school nurse. So that form is helpful as well. It gives us very preliminary information. Anytime we have a positive case, you should be following up with the school nurse. You will get a call from your school nurse to make sure that we get all of the information that we need so that we can do those other things like contact tracing and notifying close contacts. If you are informed that your child is a close contact to someone who has tested positive for COVID-19, so if someone in the home tests positive, or your child participates on a sports team and you've been notified that your child is a close contact to someone who tested positive, then we ask that you call the school and we'll give you appropriate guidance. Most often, if you've been identified as a close contact, you should quarantine. There may be some instances again where they were, you know, appropriately spaced and masked, and so quarantining may not be necessary, but you would be monitoring for symptoms. If your family plans to travel outside of the country, there is guidance here from the CDC. Again, they're all live links. The CDC recommendations is what we're following in Wayne County. We have nothing specific, but work with your school nurse to work with your school nurse to figure out when it's safe for your child to return to school. We also have information here about masking, what appropriate masks look like in school. So as long as it covers the tip of the nose and under the chin, fits none on the sides, certain fabrics are, of course, recommended and not recommended. So our district does not allow gaiters, for example. So all of our questions and answers, hopefully, around masking is here on this website. Same thing around vaccination. So we have live links here where you can get information about the COVID-19 vaccine, and then also where you can click here and find a vaccination near you, a vaccine near you. So here it allows you to put in a zip code, and you can find information about where you can get vaccinated locally. And then we go into reference information. So are there any questions so far?
I have a quick question, and maybe this is something that is just generally, I'm not sure if we have that information, but why is it 2 symptoms? I'm kind of like, there's something specific about 2 symptoms being more probable?
So the CDC has, you know, over the last 18 months or so, have had different guidance on how we manage COVID. And so initially we had a box that last year was 1 symptom in box A or 2 symptoms in box B. But I think as the research has shown, most people have more than 1 symptom. And so my guess is that's why we moved in that direction. We started kind of moving that way at the end of last school year, but it was actually put in writing this year. So I think, you know, with data collection, it just has been shown that most people will have more than 1 symptom. And surprisingly, fever is not the most common symptom that we're seeing at least, so.
So what are the most common symptoms that you're seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of congestion where students are congested. We are seeing coughs, and a lot of people are assuming, oh, it's my allergies. So we're seeing almost like allergy symptoms. And a lot of people are assuming it's my allergies. They continue to come to school, and then eventually they get tested and they find out that it's COVID. The next section here is reference information from P-CCS. And so this is where, as required by the state, we post all school-associated cases. And so here's the information you can see by day, all of the cases that we're working on and how many positive cases we've had by building. We also have on this same, our reporting and data hub website. This is where we are looking at the information that tells us. If you notice from the infographic, it talks about being in high and substantial transmission, right? And so this is where we get that information from, whether we're low, moderate, substantial, or high. And as you can see, we are still at high. We're in high transmission rate. And you can see by city or municipality, so Canton compared to Canton, Plymouth combined, compared to Plymouth and Plymouth Township. We also use this sometimes to look at what other areas around our school is doing, and we're pretty much all in high transmission right now.
That was still part of the toolbox, I guess?
So it's part of the toolbox. You can get it from, if you look at the reference information from P-CCS, this first link is the reporting and data hub. And this is where the school associated cases are. So you can look at how many cases per school.
Right.
And then the other one is this bottom link, our dashboard for P-CCS municipalities.
Okay.
And it starts off on the Basic and Health and Human Services page here, but if you click under parameters, CEC, you can see exactly where we are and how far we've come. So if you look at September 11th, all the way through, I think it was through October the 9th, you can see where our numbers are. And we were getting this information plotted about every week to 2 weeks. Right now, it's a little behind, but this is what we use to make those decisions as far as what transmission rate we're in.
Quick question.
Mhm.
So with that, you can check as many boxes as you'd like to see the data plotted on the graph.
You can. So if we were to look at, near us is Northville. So if we look at Northville, I always look at all three of them. And then you just update the plot here. You can see where Northville is. So actually Northville is they dropped. So they are still between moderate and substantial. But if you look at Northville combined, so the purple, they're still high. And you can see their incidence. These are here, the number of cumulative cases per 7 days per 100,000 people. So they're still, as overall, they're still high. But you can check as many of these boxes or as few of the boxes as you want.
That's fabulous. Thank you.
You're welcome. In addition, we have, in case you're not sure of who your school nurse is, you can reference who by building, which school nurses have which schools, and send an email right from the website. And then we have some guidelines too for, because, we're so focused on COVID right now that sometimes even as nurses we forget there are other communicable illnesses in the community. There are other illnesses still happening in the community. So we still have guidelines for parents, even though your child may just have a cough. If it's constant and disruptive and exhausting to the child, even though they're not, that's not a symptom suggestive of COVID, they should be home where they're resting, where they're hydrating, and where they're able to heal. So even though they may not be suggestive of COVID, they have a fever for a day. That doesn't mean they can't come back to school 24 hours after fever-free, but some illnesses are still better managed at home. So we do have guidelines for when to keep your child home if they're ill. And then we have some state and local guidelines. And one of the big things on our website is Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and how we manage communicable diseases in school. And as I just mentioned, there are several, of course, communicable diseases still in the community. And this is how we manage when we exclude students or when students are allowed to attend school. So for example, this year we've seen some incidents of hand, foot, and mouth disease. So if you look here, it talks about the mode of spread, what the symptoms look like, the incubation period when they're contagious, who we need to contact, and also when students need to be excluded. So if we have a student that has hand, foot, and mouth disease, they should be excluded from school if secretions from blisters can be contained, they can attend school, and if they can't be, they need to be at home. So this guides how we make those decisions for other communicable diseases as well. In addition, we have the back to school roadmap. This has not been updated since September the 2nd, but this is, again, guys, how we manage COVID in our schools. It includes definitions of things that are related to COVID-19, like what asymptomatic means compared to what contact tracing is. It talks about isolation and quarantining, things like that. It also has our screening tools here. The symptoms are here. The screening tools are here. And then it gives us some scenarios. And some of these are a little outdated now that our quarantine guidelines have changed. But it gives us scenarios of when a student, if a student is confirmed to have COVID, for example, they should be home for at least 10 days. They should be 24 hours fever-free and no fever-reducing medication. And their symptoms should have improved before they can return to school. So it also gives us scenarios on how we manage COVID cases in the school. And then there are some sample letters. So you may have seen letters like this when there's a case identified in your building. We have sample letters as well as contact information for the public health department, who we work with at the health department as well. There's also an FAQ section. This one is really outdated. It's since I think January. We are still waiting, since December. So we are still waiting on an FAQ. A lot of it is still very relevant though. So this is still out there. As soon as we have an updated copy, we will upload that as well. In addition, we have this is outdated as well from the state of Michigan, the guidelines for mitigating COVID in schools is from January, but it's the best and latest information we have. So again, a lot of the information is still very current, very relevant, so we haven't removed that. And then we just have some facts from the CDC information here, as well as some visual, helpful visuals. So this is one of my favorites, the mask. Your mask, my mask protects you, and your mask protects me. So we can see when we're both masked that we are at lower risk of transmitting and of getting COVID. And in addition, we just have, again, just some links to the Department of Health and Human Services, the Wayne County Health Department, the CDC, and then even to the Michigan Association of School Nurses. They have some information on here as well that will direct us directly to the Wayne County Health Department. So this is our COVID-19 toolbox. In addition to having a toolbox for COVID, we also have a health and safety website, just so you know. And it has the nurse's mission, again, our contact information, and then other information that is pertinent to health and safety in the school, like immunizations, like how we manage lice in school and things like that as well. So, are there any questions for me? I did want to share one other document, and sorry, Nick, did you get the one?
Yeah, it's right next to it. It's the Google Doc right next to it.
All right. So the other thing that I wanted to share really quickly.
It's on the top tabs.
Top tab, sorry. This one, okay. The other thing I did want to share quickly, and some of you may have seen this already. This is, again, from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and we're in the process of developing our own that's based directly off of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. But this is how we are quarantining, or the decisions that we're making when students are quarantined in school. So as I mentioned before, it does depend on whether or not they're fully vaccinated or not vaccinated. And then how much space there is between students. So the definition of a close contact has not changed. It's less than 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes. However, if you're at least 3 feet apart and students are both masked, even though they've been exposed, they can continue to come to school. They're exempt from quarantine. So this infographic guides all of our practices on when we make decisions to quarantine students or when students can remain in school. And as mentioned, this is the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services version that the Wayne County Health Department has all schools in Wayne County following. And then we are developing our own version as well. And when it's finalized, it will be a part of the toolbox.
I have a question about the quarantine cases, because that's published on the website too. Are those primarily positive students, or, because I know last year it was much higher numbers because the quarantine was different. But, and I know you may not have this information, but would you say primarily the quarantine students are the positive cases, or are there a lot of cases that are just close contacts too? Because I'd say I mean, it's anywhere from like 10 to 60 based on the school group.
So we are quarantining or excluding from school a lot fewer students than we were last year. We are still having close contacts because they're in the classrooms and they're 3 feet apart, but they're both masked. So they would be identified as a close contact, however, they would be exempt from quarantine. So they could continue to come to school as long as, they remain asymptomatic. We are having some close contact exclusion, so those are most often when students are at lunch, for example, because they're unmasked. They're 3 feet apart, at least in most situations, but they're unmasked. And so when they're unmasked, the risk is higher. So those students are considered, they do have to quarantine. They are exposed and quarantined. So in most cases, if we're quarantining students, it's probably a lunch exposure. It could be transportation, so on a bus exposure where they're a lot closer than 3 feet as well. Those are the students that are being excluded because they've been identified as close contacts. So that still does happen, but not as much as last year. Last year we were doing six feet around, so yeah. But the website that I did show you with the numbers, those are just positive cases. Those are just the positive cases that we're having.
Well, yeah, because there's another link where you can see that the quarantine cases that they update weekly too, and it's, like I said, much lower than last year, which is good to see. But I was just curious if that was mostly just positive cases that were quarantined, or because you don't hear a lot of close contact stuff anymore just because of the difference in quarantine.
Yep, I would agree. And so here's the link. Here's the link though. It says we're also providing COVID-19 close contact quarantine and athletic cases. So here's the link, and you can see, I think it's 2 weeks out, how many students are close contacts in quarantine as a result. And these numbers are a lot less than they were last year.
Are there any other questions for Nurse Williams?
Quick question, could like those close contact quarantines, those could not even necessarily be from school, right? It could have been like someone in their family they were a close contact to, so they have to quarantine.
Yes.
Right.
So when we count close contacts, we're counting all students who are absent for school as a result of COVID.
Okay.
As a result of having been in close contact. So you're absolutely right. Those do include in-school exposures as well as families that call us and say, we have a certain attendance code. So even if they call and say, my child has been identified as close contact, then we give them the same attendance code. So it could be either or. It's both, yes.
Judy, I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I just wanted to say thank you, Patrice, for number one, being here to educate us all on this, but for all that you and your team are doing during a pandemic. I can imagine going into the nursing profession is stressful to begin with, knowing that you're caring for all of our well-beings. And I don't believe anyone goes into this expecting that you're gonna have to manage through a pandemic. So the reality of what you guys have been dealing with over the last 18 months is just mind-blowing. And so thank you for being able to pivot. Thank you for calming all of our, as parents, our nerves during this time, because it's scary, right? And you're the ones calling us and telling us our kids could potentially be infected. So I can imagine, I've been a parent on the other end of that line, and I might not have always been as graceful as I would be because I was scared. And so on behalf of all those parents that you're working with and keeping kids safe, thank you for what you're doing. It's pretty remarkable.
Thank you.
I will agree, and I'm gonna piggyback on that idea. I let Patrice know that we actually earlier in the pandemic had a play date that was scheduled, and we were virtual last year because I have a student who is immunocompromised, and so we were playing things very safe. But as a parent, I thought, okay, she needs to see her friend, and that very day on Sunday, I believe you or another nurse, I think it was you, called her friend and said you were close contact to, someone who has had the coronavirus. And I paused and thought, our nurses are working on Sunday, and thank you. I mean, I wanted to thank you guys. I've had close coordination with our nurses beforehand. It really is eye-opening to remember that not only do you have coronavirus to deal with, but you are also a resource for all of our families beyond COVID. Is that we have families who are dealing with medical issues long before the pandemic, and you have always been a source of comfort and help to us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that, and we do have an amazing nursing staff. They are working late into the day, early in the morning, weekends. Yes, we're working around the clock to make sure that we are communicating to families as quickly as possible the information that they need to have. And I will say our district has really responded to the pandemic and what our health needs are. We're even light years ahead of other districts right here in Michigan. We don't have many districts, and I am the treasurer of the Michigan Association of School Nursing as well, our School Nurse Association here. And when I started in this position, I'm pretty sure I'm one of very few nurse managers or managers in a school system that is a nurse that manages nurses. So that was huge for our district to recognize that we needed that, and to actually have a position where we have a nurse who is, I'm not managing any schools right now, so that I'm able to do things like make sure our website is up to date, and I'm able to make sure we have all the resources we need on our website, because our nurses are just so inundated with cases and other things. So our district has been very responsive in that, and I really do applaud our nursing staff that we're able to be, like I said before, proactive and not reactive all the time. So,
and we met with our Salem High School nurse,
yes,
who is going to be there locally at Salem,
yes,
which, again, being a parent who has dealt with our school nurses, it's such a relief. So yeah, thank you to our P-CCS district for putting our nurses in place in very many times are right there at the school all the time for our students.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much for being here today, and thank you very much for all that you do.
Thank you.
So, pivoting from our health and safety and taking that positive approach at looking at what our Bond 2020 might be doing for our district and right now and in the future. We have asked our PCCS Director of Operations, Tim Grzinski. We appreciate you being here, and we just want this positive perspective on what the bond's doing here for our district and our kids.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm enjoying the bond issue. It's a lot of fun. I'm the guy that gets to go around and spread the good news. So right now, shortly after the community, and we thank the community for investing in our schools, we started the process of retaining professionals, designing the spaces that we were going to renovate in the first round, which we call EL1, Elementaries 1. The 4 schools involved were Dodson, Erickson, Field, Hulsing. And you can see here, this is the main office additions that were put on. It's a new main office for the 3 sister schools, we call them, Field, Erickson, and Hulsing. The new main office also comes with a secure vestibule to create more secure school space in and of itself. So this is just the nuts and bolts of what we're doing, putting up walls, getting ready to pour floors, all that good stuff. So here's some outside work of the Erickson addition. The addition is a new gym, a new art room, a new classroom, and a new main office. There's the Learning Commons area. We did, one of the things that this bond issue is bringing us is a furniture upgrade. So in the Learning Commons area, we have some casual seating, all easily cleanable, sort of synthetic-based materials, so it is easy to clean for our custodial staff. And it's just a way to modernize and give the kids small spaces to, hang out together and read books and whatnot. Okay, here's our new playgrounds. These playgrounds are amazing. We engaged principals, PTO, teachers, students, everybody we could in the stakeholder process to give feedback. This is the design that the group came back with. It is a very inclusive playground. It has exceptional ADA accessibility. This contractor actually came back to us and proposed more ADA compliant, compatible component playground parts, which was one of the reasons we went with this contractor. Additionally, underneath the wood chips is an extensive drainage system. And those monsoons we had at the end of the summer, these playgrounds were all playable 15 minutes after that rain. So it's going to help us with making sure that we have available spaces for the kids to play during the day, and also to keep the tracking in of mud, et cetera, to a minimum. So we're really excited about the playgrounds. Here's field. The three sister schools, again, Erickson, Field, and Halsing, are pretty similar, exactly similar, actually. So they're all getting a secure vestibule, a new main office, a new classroom, a new art room, and a new gym. Part of adding the gym here is that what the district, was promoting and emphasizing with this bond issue was equity. So the three sister schools have a gym that functions as the gym, the auditorium, and the cafeteria. By adding a gym, we break up the usage so that the cafeteria is now strictly a cafeteria. That means we don't have to rush and break down the cafeteria so gym class can start. So many of our newer schools already had that feature, the Dodsons, the Workmans, and the Bentleys. They already had those two. So this is an attempt to make the building usage more equitable. And here's Halsing. Again, they're pouring the floors, and we're getting ready to set the glass on the windows next week. The goal is to get these additions all buttoned up so we can continue to work in the cold weather. And the goal is for these to be ready when we come back from winter break, that these areas would be ready to occupy. So again, some addition photos of the new additions. We also did some interior renovations at these schools. Those interior renovations were all wrapped up before the students came back, with the exception of we're still distributing furniture due to supply chain issues. The furniture came in fits and starts, and we're still distributing that. Some more playground photos at Halsing. And again, the playground, with the stakeholders that we've had, this color pattern is going to repeat at every elementary school. The playground structure choices will repeat at every elementary school. So there's sort of a menu of items with a budget attached, and we fill that budget up based on that school's feedback to us on what they feel would be most useful in their playgrounds there. And here's Dotson. Dotson is ahead of the curve. There was no equity issues to address through construction at Dotson. There was a 4-classroom addition added to increase the population capability. We tried to recreate the brick patterns, the floor patterns, to match the existing building. This should be ready to go in the next couple weeks, and we will have a lot of fun watching the kids occupy it. It's a beautiful area. You can see the inside again. We still have the protection down on the carpeting, etc., while we're putting in the rest of the ceilings and finishing up. Part of the other projects that we've been working on is the high school projects, the HS1, which is the Salem High School auditorium addition and remodeling. So if you look at the upper orange area, where it says scene shop, corridor, and DR for dressing room, GR for green room, that's all a brand new addition. The auditorium doesn't have that real capability right now of a scene shop where they can build their scenes and cart them into the stage. They have to take up the stage while they're doing that work, which eliminates other programs using the stage. So again, it's a way to make the usage more equitable and spread it out to as many groups as possible. The existing stage is going to be completely remodeled. It will get new lighting, it will get new seating, it will get new acoustical treatments. We're going to take it away from the white and blue to more of a softer, sort of a wood grain look. We think it's going to look great. Also, they'll be getting some sound system upgrades, some rigging upgrades, some ADA access upgrades. So there's a lot of good stuff going on here. We're also redoing the front of the theater in the hallway where you walk in. So it's really going to be a show place where people can gather and get ready to watch the show. We're also going to have some closed circuit TVs, so while the performance is going on, you can watch it, and then you can time your entry to not disturb the play. So some good stuff like that. And again, we had a lot of input from our stage managers, our principals, our teachers, and community members. And our couple students were in there helping us out also. So it was a really fun process. There's a rendering of what the outside will look like. You can see that sort of cement colored part of the front on the left there. That's the scene shop. So there's the showplace entryway that we've had some really great professional designers chime in with some great suggestions. So we'll take all of the plaques and donation verbiage and all that stuff, and we'll transfer it to the new display, so we don't lose any of that history. It might look a little different, but we're going to keep that rolling forward. And there's sort of the inside and how we're going with more of a wood grain look, more of a comfortable look on the inside. And we're doing some changes to sort of the railing on the balcony is glass now. We're moving to sort of the thin cable so we get better sight lines. Very exciting stuff though, very, very pretty. All set? Okay, just quick other things we're working on right now. We're working on the Plymouth Natatorium and multi-purpose room. We're we're out for bid. We're interviewing contractors right now. We'll come back through our Finance and Operations Committee and the Board of Education, obviously, on all that. We're finishing up EL1, distributing furniture, and at the same time, we're designing and getting ready to bid out Bird, Smith, and Miller for this coming summer. And we also have the new band room, which is in the design process and part of this train that's been traveling down the track. So it's really an exciting process. And I'm really having a great time getting together with the stakeholders, and they're very, very excited. And I think we're doing a good job of respecting their input. And I think we're getting back what the community thinks is going to be a useful space.
Quick question.
Sure.
So I know obviously you can't do all elementary schools at one time, but I liked how you said for the one school you fixed the drainage on the playgrounds. Will that be at all the elementary schools?
It will be at all the elementary schools. We have. This was really a lot of work getting started.
Right.
because we really needed to plow through, make sure we got as much feedback from as many people as we can, all during a pandemic. And put that together and create a standard product going forward. So that's what we did with the playgrounds.
Well, I'm thinking more of the drainage. 'cause
Well,
I
the
know-
drainage is a for sure,
Okay.
and I have 3 kids who went through these schools here, so I know about drainage. So we're good there.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, yeah,
I have a question.
sure.
I've noticed, so my kids go to field, and I have noticed that Halsey and Erickson are more complete on the outside than field, and I'm just curious, why is that?
So the problem or the difficulty we face is field is a tighter site.
Yes.
So trying to stack those contractors on top of each other, the roofer, the mason, the steel, in the playgrounds, it became problematic trying to get them in there at the same time. So at field, we ended up having to stagger our contractor involvement a little bit, which set us back a little bit.
Okay, and I've noticed in the back playground, since it's mostly new, there's now a dirt section behind it. What's gonna be done with that?
So that's been it was actually just hydro seeded the other day.
Okay,
So we'll be bringing back a turf in those areas. We do have a little bit of a drainage area there, the problem that we're still
yeah,
working with the site and civil engineers to solve that problem.
okay,
But yeah, we're gonna grow grass,
okay.
yeah. And then we're gonna have everybody play in the playground so that they don't bring mud.
I also have a question. My kids used to go to field, and I love field. Will the parking lots be restructured or like
That was already done.
renovated?
That
So
was done.
field was done. What we did is we increased the parent drop-off loop that goes along the north side of the property line. And really one of the main reasons we did that was because parents are choosing to drive their kids to school now. Even before the pandemic, that was a trend. And we know that we're causing a backup on Haggerty, and it makes it difficult to cross the street and all those dominoes that get knocked around. So we increased the length of that loop about 200 feet, which is going to help us pull a lot more cars off of the street and create a safer environment for both the pedestrians and the drivers.
Okay. And then is there a separate bus area? Because I'm at Dotson now, and I know the other schools, they have a separate bus station where the buses can go compared to the parents can drop off in a different area. Will Field have that too, like a separate location?
So what
for buses?
we're going to do is when you pull in the driveway, you go right, go back in the loop, and you go forward to the short little loop around the parking lot to the left where your sign is. So the buses will go to the left, the parents will go to the right, and then back out.
Okay, and keep it separate.
Yeah,
That
we
will
want
be-
them, they don't mix well.
Yeah, no, I know, 7 years, 7 years. Oh, and then, I'm sorry, I had another question with Salem High School. When will that be complete? Because we were just there, and if that's the picture, it didn't look like that.
So we've worked with the staff, and the staff was very, very generous. They've been working on their schedule to free up the auditorium so we can come in on the beginning of May. That'll give us a little bit of head start. The goal is to get all the interior construction done before school starts up in September. Now, we will still be working on the additions as we button those up and then start on the interiors. But the goal is to not, other than that May, June, where they're graciously rescheduling so that we can get in there a little early, the goal is to be open and ready for performances the beginning of school. Now, again, the additions are going to be a few months after that as we finish up the interior, finishes.
It's a small detail question that I've noticed from other PTOs in the area. With the gardens, a lot of the different PTOs at different schools, they, contribute to the gardens. And I know that in the plans of the bond that there's going to be a change, or it's going to be all equitable amongst all of the schools. How would that work out? Is there a plan yet?
For the gardens?
Yes, just for the landscaping.
Oh, you mean for the site landscaping?
Sure.
So they're all going to be sort of site individual because everything's a little bit different. We have equal budget in there, but that budget will be used in different places at different schools depending on the need.
Okay, so then whatever's there right now would not just be ripped up or...
So give me a specific
So
example.
like, if there's beds, if there's gardens.
Flower beds?
Mhm. If there's flower beds, are those gonna be ripped out and then?
So that's gonna be a discussion with the building principal. And then, you know, my feedback would be who's gonna maintain it, you know, because we get lots of parents who volunteer and we put gardens or flower beds
But
and
it's
then
not every year.
they move to the middle school and we have no one to care for it.
Right.
So those are questions we ask. So I would use your principal to express your interest in what you think,
Okay.
you know, is nice, works for you.
Okay.
It depends on where they're located for Smith, Bird, and Miller, because we are closing in a courtyard. So, you know, there'll be some upset about that, and then we'll have to figure out what we're doing with those courtyards that are now enclosed and not open in a U shape to the north side of the property.
Okay. Dodson lost some flower beds with the addition that were right next to the building. So I actually have a comment with regards to the carpeting that went in. The lighter carpeting I noticed, because we happen to have a book fair at Dodson, like the third week of school. The lighter squares in the library look like they're going to not wear well. So you maybe want to look at that when you're looking at the other buildings. Because it looks like those show a lot more dirt. And we were only 3 weeks into the school year when they had book fair.
Right. Well, what we did is we go to the building with all the finishes and different scenarios and choices, and we let them choose.
Got it.
What I will say is that the district standard is now to go to 2x2 squares, so that if a square gets stained with a cup of coffee, I can peel it up and put a new one down.
Gotcha.
So,
And then the other comment is, and I'm sure some of it is just the craziness we're having with transportation, but Dodson's parking lot this year is insane. And Dr. Q is doing as much as humanly possible to try to make it flow. But it seems like it really is very poor compared to what we have. And we're constantly pushing back on that right now.
so we're having parking or traffic problems everywhere,
Got it,
Every
okay.
school.
every school. And it's just, you know, some parents don't want to put their kids on a bus anymore, so they're driving. That accelerated the trend where parents go to work, drop their kids off for, you know, school and keep going. So it's kind of a trend we've been dealing with, and some of our design reflects that.
Okay.
But yeah, we're very cognizant of that, and we're always looking for ways to improve traffic flow to make it safer.
Okay.
And I know Josh Myers, our Director of Safety and Security, just ordered a lot of signage. So, you know, especially at the park, there's gonna be some enhancements to traffic flow there, because they're having just as much fun at the park as they are at other buildings as well.
Right.
No, I agree. I have two at Canton High, so I understand. So,
So,
all right, well, thank you.
all fun problems to solve. And, any other questions?
I'm sorry, I also have a kid at Liberty Middle School, and I know Liberty's one of the newer schools, but will anything happen there, like maybe the landscaping or gardening? or-
Liberty?
Yeah, Liberty Middle
So
School.
Liberty has got a few things that we're gonna be working on. One is there's a site allowance to kind of spruce up the outside. There are a couple little boring items that I personally am interested, the kitchen disposal and a mechanical room air plant. So those are my geeky interests, but there is a budget, it is newer, it's less than most schools. But it's in great shape, so the need is,
Yeah, the landscaping though, I agree with that. I
Right.
would love to have that budget, because we were budgeting that for our PTSO. So if I
Right.
know you guys are coming in, we can take that money elsewhere.
sure, and what we've been doing with PTOs, for instance, at Field, and I don't know if you were part of that, but when we went forward with playground, the PTO had some money they wanted, they added a piece of equipment to the mix.
Yep.
And we're also making these playgrounds big enough so that in the future, PTOs can add. And they can add on to the Ninja, you know, play structure, or they can put another set of swing sets or an ADA compatible swing set. So there's room for communities to get fired up, raise money, and keep making it better.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we were a part of that. We put $10,800 towards
right.
a new
That's
yes,
right.
swing, and
Big.
everything has benches.
You get a nice bang for your buck, because we're bidding out this big chunk of work, and you can get these little pieces for less than you normally would. So, it's a good thing.
Thank you for all that you're doing.
Sure, it's fun. We're having a great time.
Can I just ask a question, just because it piqued my interest? Will the new buildings or the ones that are under construction, the playgrounds, will they still have gaga ball pits?
We do, yes.
So
Yeah,
far.
they do.
So- I don't want to drag on too long. one, but for instance,
Patrice,
because the nurse spoke up, I will say that COVID is, we are changing certain things we do because of COVID. We're going to automatic soap dispensers, automatic paper towel dispensers, automatic faucets, large format tile so we have less grout. We're making sure our mechanical equipment is sized appropriately with robust filter capability. So we have all that in the back of our mind, and we talk through it every week, and we try to come up with ideas that will help improve that scenario for all of us.
I have one other question for you. How is all of the crazy TikTok vandalism that occurred at the park and at the middle schools impacting some of the bond money?
So luckily at this point, it's not impacting the bond in and of itself. What we're losing is soap dispensers, paper towel dispensers. It's a pain in the butt, but it's not causing structural damage to anything.
Okay.
But yes, we have to repair it.
But yeah.
No, I know.
The problem with bond work is either a restoration, a renovation, or a complete build. So bond work can't be used for repairs technically, so the repairs have to be used onto the general fund.
So
to operate the budget.
we don't want to spend the money. We'd rather spend the money on other things.
No, and that's clearly the point I've been making to my children who are at the park.
Yeah.
Right.
It impacts everybody, whether it's in your building or not, it impacts everybody.
So I think the next one, if I saw it correctly, I think January is another destructive month. But we're watching that.
We're watching it. People are involved and paying attention. It hasn't been, we've had damage, but it hasn't been crazy out of control. That's a reflection of the parents' side.
Well, we want to thank you so much for coming here, and anytime something as big is on the horizon that you feel like you want to describe it, we would love to have you back, because this is good, positive. It's kind of like improving your home during or after the pandemic, and I just want to comment that the care and the detail that you are using to describe it reminds me of, a neighbor who is remodeling their home, except you're so much more calm about it. So I appreciate that, and I was just thinking to myself, I'm really glad that you're involved in planning it.
Well, as a member of this community, I'm really grateful that everybody chipped in and improved it and invested in our schools, because I think it's a thing to do.
I would like to suggest maybe get on an April, May agenda. That'll be, you'll be able to see better pictures of the pool and the auditorium, which will blow you away. It's so exciting. And then EL2 will be well on its way as well. So we're going to bring you some pictures for that. So I'm thinking like maybe mid to late May, whenever your May schedule has. Just stick us on there, and we'll come show you what's to come.
We're not gonna be our field trip this year.
You know what? God willing, right? Everything is healthy and safe. We would love, I was almost gonna say tour, but I thought, no, Dick might not be as what he said.
I did it for you.
Yeah,
So for
tours
the
are
people
really
listening,
good.
I would encourage them to go to those 4 schools with their kids and try the playground out. They'll love it.
I'm there.
I would just like to add that the fact that we were pushing this bond so hard and now to see the flourishing of it is amazing, I'm blown away.
Thank you very much,
You're welcome.
we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, yes.
I said, money questions, you want to take money?
We are so glad to see you walk in, our superintendent Monica Merritt. So glad to see you.
Yes.
Without the screen involved.
That's right.
And although it has been a long time, we know we have seen you anywhere and everywhere, doing all of the things that you have had to do, so thank you. We can't even say how grateful we are to all that you have done during this time to keep our kids in school and safe, and we are so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. And I have to say, I underestimated even walking into the room, because I kind of just last minute like, oh, Nick, we're in person, not virtual, and so it hit me, so I'm like, I'm adjusting, but when I came into the room, I immediately just felt energized again, and I think it helped me to, I'm always reflecting every day now, and I just think about the kids. I was coming in here reporting all the staffing issues and the stress, and I just thought how good it feels to be in person, and how good our kids feel to be back in person. And so all of the challenges we're going through, it's just so worth it, right? Because people need to be around people. That isolation has been hard. So just thank you for your work to get us back in person. I know I probably missed a great presentation by Nurse Williams, but she is working so incredibly hard. I'm so grateful for her and the position that she's taken in terms of leadership around our nursing program, our wellness program, not just managing COVID-19, which is a daily, and I'm sure she said we are fully in the middle of a pandemic right now with daily cases, but the nursing staff has gone above and beyond, and under her leadership, really, I'm realizing, I'm confident when we're post-pandemic that our school environment will just be a better, safer, healthier place for our students, and I'm very encouraged about that. So thank you for all that you shared. So I'll go back to the challenging part, which is the dealing of staffing concerns, and every microphone that I get, I try to take an opportunity to talk about that. I want to shout out Debbie, that's why I didn't want her to walk out. She's over our operations and finance, so over $178 million budget, and at the same time operations that includes transportation, custodial, food service, and we probably have 100 openings in all three of those departments alone. Debbie herself is up sending checks at 4 a.m. about buses that are canceled. So if you think about our transportation situation, we have originally 116 routes to transport approximately 10,000 kids or riders. This year with staffing shortages, they worked to condense those routes. It felt like a PR kind of miss, but it really wasn't. Truly, we had people that were resigning the Friday before school started on Tuesday. So working through that weekend was last minute communication, condensed those 116 routes down to 108, just trying to make sure that we can get as many riders on the bus, and still had to cancel 10 routes that remained unfilled. We had 93 drivers. There is a system within the transportation world where drivers get to bid on their routes, so they're not just assigned routes. So they bid on those 23 routes, and the remaining 10 routes were the routes that were suspended. So they have been going above and beyond, working, trying to recruit drivers. And I don't have all the numbers of the drivers, but it's been a long process. So you know, the recipient, you're like, why can't you get these drivers? So even though we get someone interviewed and trained, training takes a while, and we don't want to put our precious babies on the road on this big bus with somebody who doesn't have proper credentialing and training. So that takes a while, and the Secretary of State process takes a while. And then when they hire, like they hired 3 new drivers, and then we had 3 drivers quit. And so it's, you take 3 steps forward, 3 steps back. As you hire new drivers, they will go on the routes that have been suspended since the start of the school year. That's the best way that we can kind of share the burden among. But then the new routes have to be communicated. And one, like the driver's last day was the 25th, and we found out on the 22nd. So parents just didn't have a lot of time to figure out ways to get students to school. So we're still trying to see how we can maybe support parents with our latchkey program, our free of charge, or different ways that we can work to bring people together. But the biggest piece is just get the word out there. Referral bonuses, we are getting credits from Durham for the routes that are not being covered. And so trying to give bonuses to drivers, referral bonuses to any family or person that refers someone. Any person that refers someone that actually goes through and can get hired. There's a bonus for that, so get the word out. And it's important. We so value our drivers. I will say a difference between this year and last is people have COVID fatigue, and the grace hasn't been as plentiful as it was last year. And so sometimes our bus drivers are the recipients of this anger. Our nurses are at times of rules that we're just trying to comply to keep school open. And so I just continue to also ask for grace for the drivers, because they are showing up, taking care of our students every day, getting them to and from school. So that's a big area. Clean is also a big area. We moved into a new cleaning company. We're still outsourced for cleaning. 88 positions is what we outsource for, but we actually added on 20 additional positions this year to help with COVID cleaning. And with that company, unfortunately, 59 was my last number. Is that what's currently?
Yes, ma'am.
no fault of theirs as well, because everybody is in this national shortage. So trying to hire on new people. There are 59 of the 88 positions that we contracted out for, and that doesn't even include the 20 COVID cleaners. We also tried to bring forward our own cleaning assistant positions, and we still haven't fully staffed those. I think we started those in January, trying to fill those, and we're at 20 of 24 positions. So just trying to put extra layers of support within the school to keep clean. I continue to say Plymouth Canton Community Schools, the community aspect is really showing right now, where it's an all hands on deck, and our staff has stepped up. We're giving stipends for cleaning to just help, so teachers cleaning their own room, or support staff pitching in and cleaning in various areas to just make sure that then the limited cleaning staff we have can focus on bathrooms and floors and the Clorox 360 machine and all of those things to make sure that we keep our environments safe. So that's another area to get the word out, and we are definitely hiring. We had a hiring job fair virtually last week, and I think that we were successfully able to offer some contracts in a couple of areas. We have openings in security, secretary openings, paraprofessional openings, teacher openings. Well, we're fortunate, I will say, that most of our teaching positions are filled. We do have a few elementary, like a music opening, art opening, which makes stress for teachers as they have to juggle their planning, sometimes give that planning up if we're not able to get a sub, because we have sub openings. So we've done some creative pay for our subs to try to make sure that we're a little bit more than competitive with our local districts. In general, we usually have about an 85% fill rate for subs. Right now, we're looking many days at about a 65% fill rate, and this is with premium pay that's out there. So it truly is not for a lack of trying, but it's a workforce issue. I think early on, people assumed it was the unemployment benefits, and when they were over, that people would come back. But I think it's so much bigger than that, and probably just worthy of a study. You know, Beth said one day, our chief academic officer, let's not forget, 20,000 people have died in the state of Michigan, many of whom were a part of the workforce that won't return. Others are choosing just quality of life to say, hey, if I don't have to go pay all of this money for childcare and can stay home and not have to, you know, gas and all of these things, then maybe I can go without this job. So we're even thinking and looking at that to say, how do we continue to even enhance our benefits and our pay structure, because I think everybody's just competing for the same limited workforce right now. So that kind of goes to, as happy as we are to be back, and we feel like we're getting back to our new normal, there is nothing normal about the world that we're living in. So it truly does take a village, and people are stepping up to make that experience good for our kids. Without overwhelming the system, I'll say we have to always be mindful of our staff, because you'll hear conversations, they will tell you, we're exhausted, it's October and it feels like it's the end of June. You'll hear that all the time, but I will say they are masterful at keeping it away from the kids, and I appreciate that so much. So continue to get that word out. We still are a great place to work. People choose to move here. Many of our employees also live in our district, as you hear Tim, you know, I chose the district for my families, I think, both your parents, both of you as well. Patrice, that's right, Gretchen as well. And so, just saying, get that word out. The money piece, I just wanted to share, and then Debbie, I'll let you go. The fortunate side of this whole piece is we've gotten some federal support for funding. And you know, in terms of Per Pupil Foundation, that's how we get our money. We are the lowest funded foundation allowance in the state of Michigan. Really had a historical budget this year from the state that moved that foundation allowance up to $8,700 and really kind of put everyone on par with that, unless you're a hold harmless district that some still make $10,000 or $12,000 per kid, but we don't talk about that. We're happy for the $8,700 that we're getting per student. In addition to that, there are federal funds that came with the focus of this pandemic and the impact, I think, mostly on the social and emotional needs of our students. I think the impact we won't know even at times for years to come, some of the things that our young people have dealt with throughout this pandemic. So federally, there have been funds coming to school districts called ESSER funds. And most recently, I will say we have a victory in that federal funds are allocated based on your Title I. So that's looking at your social and economic status within the district. And there's really been an argument to say the pandemic doesn't discriminate based on money, and all kids are impacted. We saw an article the other day that said referred to Plymouth Canton as an affluent district. And, you know, people have a perception, but again, we're at the lowest foundation, and we've been very efficient with our use of resources, and we have a lot of students, so that helps, but by no means would we consider ourselves, according to our foundation allowance, affluent. However, our kids have needs. So with this federal fund allocated by Title I, we would have only received about $400 per student. So the state went out to say, let's look at this equalization payment to make sure that every student in the state of Michigan at a minimum gets $1,093 of federal funds to support these added needs, especially the social emotional focus within schools. And initially, the federal government was saying, hey, that's not really the spirit or the intent of the ESSER funds. And so that was kind of a back and forth. I think we had the pleasure of hosting Secretary Cardoza, U.S. Secretary of Education here at the park, which was amazing. He was amazing. He's just so personable. I'll just like birdwalk for a moment. I think he's probably his security team's worst nightmare because they're in COVID trying to make sure he's contained and worked for like a week to try to get his security plan. And he gets here, and as soon as a kid was there, he was right in the middle of the crowd. And a kid said, hey, can I take your picture? And he's like, hey, come on, selfie time. So he was on the register. He was just great to have him being the lead learner in our country. But anyway, use that opportunity to kind of whisper in his ear some of the work that we're doing for social emotional needs of our students, the increased hiring of nurses and counselors and behavior support specialists. We were able to do this in anticipation of these federal funds. And so I think that was beneficial to hear how we are utilizing, and we have needs as well. And throughout the state there was some advocacy. So we just learned last week that that is approved. We will get that equalization payment. What that means for Plymouth Canton is an additional $10 million in federal funding. And there's a lot of restrictions that we don't know what those restrictions are, but we do know that the intent is really to support these needs of our students. And when you look at those needs, when you think about social, that's really how you relate to others. Emotional is really how you feel, and then behavior is how we're acting. And I will share, we are seeing some increased behaviors in our students at the high school level. We've seen some more physical aggression, some more fights. Elementary school, we've seen issues even with pottying concerns at 3rd grade, having accidents. And so those are things that kids may not be acting out, but it's still manifesting itself in anxiety and stress. And so having that ability to support additional staff to help them manage those concerns, resources, and that's a lot of work that I know that Patrice and team and our school psychologists are looking at partnerships within resources outside. We are not mental health providers, but to make sure that we connect our families to resources and help to remove the barrier behind some of mental health and getting and asking for help. So I say all of that to say still is a silver lining is that we'll have the funding to put supports in place to really figure out what our kids need and to provide those supports here in connections within our community to help support their needs. But still encouraged that we're able to be here in person because those needs were happening in a virtual space and it was really hard to make those connections. So being back here in person is an important place to be in order to make that happen. So with all of that, I'll end with this because I talk a lot and I like to come here to listen and answer questions. I want to be able to have questions. I just want to talk about some long-term planning we're doing right now. We talked at the end of the school year about the dynamic plan. That really is our compass for the work or guiding the work that we do for our school district. Our plan expired in June in the middle of a pandemic. So it wasn't the best time to try to bring the community together to say what are we going to look like for the next 5 years. But we were successful in getting some virtual feedback and leaning on this group as well. We'll continue to lead for feedback. We were able to work starting in January to develop our high-level strategic themes. This is utilizing the Board of Education, really trying to define what are our pillars, what do we want our students to be when we look at a K-12 profile of our learner, what do we expect in our community, and really some big items that bubbled up. We're a community that's focused on equity, making sure that every student has what they need to be successful, making sure that our community is one in which students feel welcome and valued and safe. So that was a pillar that came out of all of the stakeholder groups. Looking at innovation, I will say another silver lining to this pandemic, we were forced to be innovative more quickly than we had planned to be. We had already always talked about a virtual academy and we were planning to implement, but we had to implement overnight and that wasn't the plan. But we did, I think, a great job with the Teachers Learning Canvas and how to teach differently. And some of those ways during the initial last school year, yes, we had 4,000 students that were learning in the virtual academy. We're able to keep this going and we'll keep this going post-pandemic. This year we have about 800 students, close to 900 students that have chosen to learn virtually. Some just because it's a mitigation factor and just not ready to come back in person. But some truly do enjoy and excel at learning virtually. So that was a positive, really addition or silver lining. You heard probably from Tim in the bond work, we're gonna have this innovation hub at the park and really thinking about bringing different types of learning to our kids, artificial intelligence, like we used this summer to pilot a lot of programs that were really engaging for students and looking at how we can embed those into our curriculum. So that's a part of that dynamic plan. How do we become first in class, make sure that we have innovative educational programming for our kids so that people are choosing PCCS. Our measure of success is instead of us going around the country saying, hey, let's see how they did it, people are coming to us to say, hey, let's see this program and how you are bringing these opportunities to students. Another area that really bubbled up was our community and engagement and partnerships. Communication, especially during a pandemic, is something that we got criticized a lot on, and I think as much as you believe that you communicate, you still can always do it 10 times better. And so we heard a lot about the two-way communication, parents wanting an opportunity to not just hear from district, but engage with district and give feedback. So looking for ways to improve those two-way communications, and then the partnerships in so many spaces, like I talked about in mental health resources and early college alliance and opportunities for students. We always have our amazing partners of our EEF who support our learning, support our teachers, and looking for innovative ways to continue to partner with our innovative ideas going forward. And so how do we grow and deepen our current partnerships, and how do we seek new partnerships to really enhance our experience for kids? And what was the last one? The final one was really about student voice. So we talk a lot about the importance of student voice. I think if one thing we've really learned through this pandemic is students know at times what they need, what individually, we talk about equity, what do I need individually to be successful and how do I get there? So really making sure that we're very intentional about including student voice within every aspect of the educational program. So through that work, those are the themes. The steering committee has worked to develop some objectives. The various department has developed action plans around those objectives. So we're at a point where we're at a draft and we want to go back to community. You will be very helpful in that to just put your eyes on this and give some feedback as we work towards a final plan. So we're working this weekend to try to get that draft out, and we'll utilize the next few weeks to get some feedback groups and get some eyes on it. On Tuesday night, we'll, in workshop setting, go over a couple of the areas with the Board of Education, come back then in November and do the same to go through all, have the feedback loop, and hopefully be ready for an approved plan by the end of November or December. So it's good. I continue to talk about trying to streamline, but at the same time it feels like there's so much that continues to be on our plate. When I said earlier, being mindful not to overwhelm the system, just knowing that we need to take care of everyone, students and staff, social, emotional, and mental health needs in order to do be successful in the academic space. So that's all of the work that is around us currently. It is big work, it is challenging work, but like I said at the beginning, it is so worth it to be here with our students and provide this experience for them. So with that, any questions that you have for me?
I have one real quick. With regard to subbing, might be more of a comment. So like my kid's principal actually had called me because she knew I was a teacher in her pre-kid life, and hey, can you sub? And one thing I'd like, it might be helpful is it's difficult, like when you go to, so I went to our website and put in substitute teaching, and it basically just says go to EduStaff. And my son's principal just basically sent me the EduStaff card, but it would be helpful, I think, for people if maybe on our page, I know it's through EduStaff, and that's fine, but maybe somewhere when you go to the substitute teaching page, give some information, like I had to chat with EduStaff to figure out what the pay was
Okay.
and all of that stuff, so, that just might be helpful to make our substitute teaching page on the website, just have some more information so people don't feel like, oh my gosh, it wasn't easy. I had to go to EduStaff's website. Their map wasn't working. It says, you go to the map and to find your school, and that map wasn't working. And so then I chatted with the representative to so just having some more solid information, like what the pay is, how it works, might just be helpful to have that on the website. And then obviously still go through EduStaff, but then I think I heard in the town hall meeting too, that you said something about, even reimbursing for fingerprints, like that would be helpful to know, and then maybe information do you have to work all day? Can you come in for half days and stuff like that, I think would be very, very helpful. I know for me personally, that the principal asked, I'm I have no full days, but I would love to come in, but can I come in for just a half day? Would that be okay? Or, I don't know, but I think more information would be helpful, just in terms of substitute teaching on our website.
That is great feedback, and yes, you can come in for half days. I think of the unfilled days right now, a lot of times the days that don't get picked up are the half days, and so, yes, great feedback.
It's good to prove my mind.
Yes. Expedite, you are hired.
We do this every
We do this every year. I got your fingerprints covered.
I guess the other positions that Monica didn't mention that I need help with are crossing guards, before and after school. I need bus, supervision, playground supervision, lunchroom supervision. So if you could get the word out to your members as well, those are just part of the day, but they're really hard to fill right now.
I just got hired.
Yay! Thank you.
You had crossing guard, lunchtime supervision.
Bus duty before and after school, and playground supervision as well.
So those, I know being at Dotson with Dr. Hughes, she said those are 2 hours a day. Lunch is 11 to 1. How would that work? Because I know we talked about that. The fingerprints is $169. If I'm getting $11 per hour, working 2 hours a day, it's going to take a while for me to get all my hands.
Absolutely. No, all the fingerprinting, we are going to cover that. So it's just we need to have it paid in advance and then reimburse us. I think the way that they're doing it to ensure. Was it 30 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's only $66.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say it's not seven.
Canton Township has a deal with us too.
Okay. And then if that's the case, if you are only working 2 hours a day, do you still have to fill out the whole application, form? Is there an easier way to go
Yeah,
about
so
it?
we're working on call it a non-certified teacher app. But for right now, you can skip most of the application. It's just that first page, the contact information, and then your resume, and HR will contact you.
It was really easy. They have all of the parts where you need to do for that, when you're applying for a position. It has all the parts in green, and it was really easy to do. So, and then the parts that you don't have to do are all in red. So you'll know that you only need to do a certain amount of the application, and then everything else was a breeze.
Thank you.
That's a great question.
Keeping in mind too, we want those processes to be somewhat difficult when we're interviewing people who the principal doesn't know personally, and we want to have that process in place when we're not under our pandemic emergency case. So just thinking that these are people who are going to be working with their babies every day, right? So we said crossing guards, lunchtime supervision, bus duty. I know some of the bus duty, it could be 1 hour. So I mean, a parent who might have younger people at home, but if they have that 1 hour where they, either have a spouse or someone at home who's covering, if you're dropping off your kids.
That's right.
I had done it. I would pick up one, zoom into Gallimore, and I would help everybody. I mean, these are actually positions too. It's somewhat difficult to do in a non-pandemic situation, right? So I mean, I think parents out there do need to know it's safer. So if you're picking up your children, then you're going to be there anyway. Yep.
I was going to ask, could you apply for more than one position? And
If they're not at the same time, just.
Absolutely. Apply one time and you're employed and you say, we'll work in these areas and maybe on this day I can do bus and on this day I can do lunch, and we'll say absolutely.
There's even substitute positions
Yes.
where you would go in as a parapro when they need you. Any other questions?
I have one. I know that we changed our cleaning crew. Why did we change? I think it was like GRBS.
Yes.
Why did we change from them?
So we had been with GRBS since 2014, and we had done a few years of extending contracts. And GRBS was really a good partner, I will say that. I know that at times it feels like they had like a negative halo at times within our community. I really think that we feel like a small town, but we're a very large district, and that was a small company. And so even before pandemic, just having a consistent staff at times became a challenge. So we had worked to really define what our quality of clean was here in PCCS, and they were on board with working to achieve that, and at times it was just not able to maintain the staffing level. So at the time, of course, as we looked to this national company who would have a deeper bench of employees because they are national and they have other places here within, they have large districts. I think they also service Ann Arbor, maybe Utica, so they're used to large districts. We were the largest district for GRBS. We just thought, all right, at this time, it would probably benefit us to go out with a different company who has a really good reputation and can address the staffing issues, but none of us really did foresee this element coming. So even with their deep bench and being able to pull from different districts, it still has been a challenge.
And I didn't tell you yet, but I have conversations with my counterparts at neighboring school districts in and around Southeast Michigan, and everyone's having the same issue. So it's really not, it's the industry as a whole, not necessarily firm specific, because I had calls today from Northville and Royal Oak, and they have different companies as well.
The thing with, I do again want to say, GRBS truly was a good partner. They gave us, even on their own dimes, because we had contracted out for a certain number of cleaners and they felt like they needed different types to get it done. And so on their own dime, they covered other supervisory positions and things along those lines. So they really tried hard to make it work, and we hung in there for a while, but we were sacrificing in some areas that we thought it was time to just move to a different company.
I always wondered that, so
Yeah,
thank you.
yes.
I did have one question I meant to ask it when Patrice was here, but has Wayne County talked to you at all about with the approval of this vaccine for the lower grades? Have they talked about trying to get into the schools? Because I know that's one of the big pushes is either getting into schools or through pediatricians and stuff like that. I just wondered, since we had the vaccine clinics previously over the summer or whatever, if Wayne County has mentioned doing anything like that?
Early on, so we haven't talked recently, but we have held the vaccination clinics here, and we always volunteer to be partners. They love our site, it's very convenient, so I do believe that if given that opportunity, they would partner with us to be a satellite site, because we're able to really accommodate a lot here in terms of the traffic flow on non-school days. Yes, yes. And it's really nice too, because being a site, we can serve the needs of our community, but really anybody also that is around and available, they will take drive-throughs, so anybody throughout the community, they don't have to attend Plymouth School. So it's a greater good type of partnership, which is helpful.
I want to thank you again for coming in, taking your time. It is always so good to have you here and get a big bird's eye view of our district. That's one of the things I've loved about having you here and being at these meetings, is we kind of have our narrow family or even our school's perspective on things. It's just nice to get that whole district view, and you're always so warm and gracious when you're here, so I'm just so happy to see you.
Thank you. Ditto.
I want to also acknowledge Gretchen Ward, who is our Executive Director of our Educational Excellence Foundation. And maybe not everybody knows our EEF. We usually refer to her to the organization as our EEF. And Gretchen, we'll let you have the floor.
Thanks. I echo what I think everyone has said so far today is Isn't it great to see people again? Like, didn't realize I missed you guys so much. No, I'm kidding. I've always loved Parent Council because I feel like Parent Council and the EEF are like organizations. And for those who are watching maybe at home and don't know who we are, EEF, or the Educational Excellence Foundation, is the 501c3 nonprofit that supports the school district. And we're one of the few organizations that actually, based on our fundraising efforts and some of the work that we do, impacts every school and every student district-wide. And so it's a pleasure to be able to partner with groups like yours who do the same thing. You have representatives from every school. We're here for the common good and representing our particular areas. So it's so nice to be back, and I just want to thank you again for giving me a platform. I just want to share a couple things since we've been in person last, because I don't think I've gotten to share a lot. Just about what the work of the EEF has been doing kind of through COVID and what we're looking forward to in the future. Like all of your organizations, your PTOs, the EEF has been struck hard by COVID. All of our fundraising events have been canceled. And so we've really had to pivot, like everyone else, to find different ways to be able to do the business of our foundation and do the best amount of support for Plymouth Canton schools. And so we've been very fortunate over the last year through our community partnerships and through our local donors to still be able to provide financial support to students and teachers. Most notably, we did do a classroom grant cycle last year where we awarded, I want to say around $25,000 to teachers and students throughout the district. But what was amazing about this is we do classroom grant cycles every year. Usually it's around $40,000. So last year, because it was financially, we were a little bit tighter, we had to reduce the amount that we donated. However, it was so amazing, and I encourage anyone who's interested in what teachers are needing right now, go to our website, because all of our classroom grants are on there. And what we saw last year is teachers were so thoughtful about what they asked for and what they needed. So to echo Monica's comment about social emotional learning, we saw teachers saying, how can I impact social emotional learning in my classroom with maybe just $1,000? That $1,000 that teacher got made a big impact. So we saw grants for social emotional learning. We saw grants particularly at the middle school for, what's the word I'm looking for, executive functioning skills, because we found out that they were seeing that middle schoolers are learning these skills in the classroom. But when we were virtual last year, how do you translate executive functioning when you're doing it through a computer? And so it was Discovery Middle School found a way to do that, and it was really successful in their school. So it was really refreshing to see that and be able to provide that amount of support for teachers. And I do encourage teachers, we just opened another classroom grant cycle this year. It's available on our website, eef4kids.org. There's just an online, we make it very easy for educators to apply because we realize they're educators, they're not grant writers, and we don't expect them to be. So I encourage any teacher who says, hey, I really want to do this thing in my classroom, but I don't want it to come out of my own pocket. This is a great way that they can go out and utilize those resources. And the applications for those, for anyone who's listening, are due November 12th. So aside from our classroom grant cycle, though, we still had a lot of people, very generous donors that said, I want to help students. How can I help students whose families are impacted by this pandemic? So we received a $10,000 gift for Salem High School for students if they need to go on a field trip and they don't have money. If they want to participate in a club or a sport and they don't qualify for the Title I waiver, but their family does have a financial need, we want to be able to meet that gap. And so we've seen donors come out. Field Elementary was one. We had a teacher that passed at Field, and her family said the best way to honor her is to make sure students at Field have everything they need. Linda Brown Mace was the teacher's name. So we opened a memorial in her name for students who need those needs at Field. So we're still doing pockets like that because we do recognize, like Monica said, every student in Plymouth Canton should have the same educational opportunities as any other student. And so we want to help supplement that at our level when we can. And then finally, we celebrated our seniors and our teachers last year at the end of school. We awarded about $20,000 to graduating seniors throughout the district in scholarships. And we held our first Thank a Teacher, Salute a Staff campaign. And oh my goodness, it's our first of many. Because at the end of the year, families were able to donate $25 and recognize a teacher or a staff member or a bus driver that made an impact in their school. And that particular person, number one, they're all still listed on our website, but they also received a personalized certificate from the family. And that personalized certificate came with a note of what that person's interaction meant to them. And I'm not too proud to say that I teared up a couple times putting those onto a certificate and sending it to a person, because this could be, and I've had teachers that came back to me and said, I never knew they felt this way. or I never knew the impact of what that meant. So it was a delight, it was a pure joy to be able to do that and end the year on a high note, celebrating our seniors that were leaving, but celebrating the successes that we had during a pandemic, because who are we kidding? Last year was hard, right? Like, it was hard. But through that, there was still silver linings and really good things happened and positive things. So we wanted to end the year that way, and we did, and it was fantastic. And I think we're hitting the ground running this year, trying to get back to some type of normalcy, coming back to meetings like this. It's really exciting. So we're glad to be back. Classroom grant program is ongoing, and look for great things in the future. And for those who might know me as the wine lady, our biggest fundraising event is our EEF wine tasting. It happens at Fox Hills, and we are bringing it back this year. Sorry, technology. I'm so excited. We are bringing it back. It is going to be on Friday, April 8th. That is the Friday after spring break, but the Friday before Good Friday. So put that on your calendar, Fox Hills. You do not want to miss it, because we are going to party, all for the students and teachers in Plymouth Canton. So that's all I have. Thank you, guys. It's so great to be here.
I think we're all penciling in Friday, April 8th.
We all need it.
We all need it, and it will benefit our schools. So that is what we are all here focused on.
I did see that our Chief Academic Officer, Ms. Beth Rail, popped in. I just wanted to make sure I introduce her to everyone.
Thank you. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to see
Yeah,
you.
this part. Good to see everyone.
Good to see you.
Can I just share? So Beth also led one of the classes I was talking about this summer. So typically in our summer school program, we maybe serve about 700 students. This year in summer, we serve the needs of 5,000 students through our summer programming. And Beth actually held a class herself. Beth, tell us about that class. Put me on the spot.
Sure, it was called,
Hey Beth, if you could get on,
Yep.
that'd be great.
I can do that.
This will be the last time you come into a meeting.
So I had the pleasure of working with several young people in what was called AR, VR, AI explorations, augmented reality, virtual reality, and artificial intelligences. And so what we really did was dabble in some kind of unique and emerging technologies, played around a bit, and then let them create some things using a program called Co-Spaces, where they just started to develop something that they were interested in that could teach someone else some skills. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. It was just a couple of weeks, but it also helped kind of get some input for us as well around the excitement around virtual reality and how virtual reality and augmented reality can be used in classrooms at a greater goal. So
I read the article they did about that. I was in the Plymouth Rock or one of the magazines Plymouth sends out. I'm like, that's so cool, we're doing this like that. Thank you for starting that, 'cause that's a really awesome thing to be able to have. Even my son's only in 5th grade, like he can't wait to do that kind of stuff in middle school and high school, so that's really, really cool.
it's part of a larger vision as we look forward and think about innovation in education. I saw up here that you talked a little bit about the dynamic plan, but one of the emerging strategic objectives coming out of the teaching and learning department is around educational innovation and creating an infrastructure here at PCCS for teachers and students to innovate in a safe space in a way that helps kind of think differently about how we engage in teaching and learning. So we're excited about where we're gonna go. So thanks.
Thank you. I was brought back to, it was actually one of your first months here, which I can't remember when that was because my memory of time has now gotten very bad. But it was one of your very first months after United, and I said, hey Beth, why don't you come, put you on the spot, well, come to our parent council meeting. And I remember after that meeting, I had so many people email and say, I'm so happy she's ours. And it was kind of like this repetitive idea. So we're still happy that you're ours and that you're here with us.
Thanks for having me here.
One thing I love about Beth, can I embarrass you for a second? Is I'm always thinking about how are we going to talk about students or kids or our babies. Beth, you always call them young people. And I always say, I need to work that into my vocabulary more. I love the words young people. Like I work with our young people. I love that you say that. Random.
Thinking back to that idea, you are like one of our favorite people. We were here at kind of winding up our meeting here. We are asking those of you in the audience, those of you who are watching later on, we are wanting, we actually have a Google form.
Yes, I will send it out again after the meeting.
We will send it back out. And we are asking all of our schools, our parent council representatives to talk to your families, to talk to your schools, talk to those at your PTO leaders and at your meetings, what topics that you would like us to address at our parent council meetings. I, along with our board, create our agenda each month, and I can come up with what I want to hear, but I really want to know what people, because I know that there are particular people in our district, like Beth, and I think back to like some of our best speakers, or topics that you would like to see here. And that way we can hopefully meet the needs of both our families and our schools going through this time and see, who would give you what would be the best and most useful topics as well as information for you to hear. So feel free, we have the Google form. You can also email us at parentcouncil@pccsk12.com, and I'm happy to send you that Google form as well. And for those of our parent council reps who are watching this later on, please email us and let us know by email so that I can record you with our attendance here today. Nick, recognizing you, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add two things. First and foremost, I know Monica touched on this, but I really want to show gratitude to the Parent Council Board. Judy for returning as president. You provided such amazing leadership for this group in the last few years, and after a brief recruitment, you agreed to do it again. And we really appreciate it. And to our returning and new Parent Council Board, so excited to work with you guys. And just thanks for giving your time. The salary for these positions is not exponentially high. So they give their time and their effort and their heart to the district, and we
We've heard
appreciate
the city
it.
rumors, we are volunteers.
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't want to be so trending on
I bet on Facebook, yeah, we'll be trending. One reminder, and Superintendent Mayor did such a good job of bringing up a lot of our current issues, but my job at the end of these meetings typically is to let the PTO leaders know what can you take back to your PTOs. At the elementary level, it is very, very important right now that we message to our families the importance of our new opt-in program with our breakfast program through our Nutrition Services Department. Effective on November 1st, families will have to opt in if they want to be able to get that free breakfast meal bag every single day. And starting on November 1st, if a family has not opted in using the form on the school's websites, then they won't be eligible to take that home on that given day. So it's really, really important. We included this. We made it the primary thing in our podcast this week. It's been on our website. It will be in our messages from principals. But any assistance we get from anybody in the room to help message us out. It's just so important that we let families know about this, because obviously a well-fed student is a student ready to learn, as our Nutrition Services Department always says. The opt-in form will be available on all of our elementary school websites. It'll be there front and center. Families can go there. It'll be a quick form. They can complete it, but the deadline is November 1st. So any assistance you can give in getting the word about that will be great for our students and great for our families. And President Hart, that is it from us.
What about
Sure.
Virtual Academy in-person switch? Maybe announce that too, because I think.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's a good call. And this will be coming very soon in all the outlets previously mentioned, but there will be a date window coming up for the ability to switch from the virtual academy to in-person learning, or from in-person learning into the virtual academy. I don't know the dates right offhand, but it's mid-November. That's right, really mid-November. So we'll be putting together a variety of communications for that, some visuals, some audio. Again, it'll be the central focus of the podcast next week. And that would be very helpful too, to help us to communicate that out. And this will be one of the important elements of this. This is going to be the one-time opportunity for families to make that switch. And so very, very important that we get the word out on that. So
there'll be two windows. The first window will be November for elementary school, because we're on trimesters. So they'll have an opportunity to switch one time at the end of the first trimester. And then the next window will be in January to choose for secondary, because they're semesters for the second semester.
you got it.
Perfect.
Cool.
I would like to remark on that too, being a family that we went from virtual back to in-person. We do have to recognize that all districts have not given their families that choice. I do think that our families do need to recognize that that choice is, especially this year, it's not countywide or statewide choice, that we are very, being that I've talked to families who last year opted into virtual and it was actually taken away from them in other districts. We do have to recognize that's a very, very important choice that we have as going forward. One last detail from the beginning, looking back at the very beginning of our agenda, I did just pass out the minutes that were from way back last May. This was our last parent council meeting of the 2020-21 school year. And I do want to just note that we had everybody who is present here today given a copy of the May 2021 minutes. I'll give you a couple of minutes to look those over. I will post these minutes. I will give an electronic copy to Mr. Brandon to put on the website, so those of you who are attending the meeting virtually later on, you can take a look at the meeting minutes and also vote when you email in your attendance. So I'll give you a few minutes to take a look at the minutes recorded by our recording secretary, Andrea Schultz.
And while people are looking for the camera, I want to give everyone the dates because we referenced them for the virtual academy again. So for K through 5, the window will be November 1st through November 10th. And for 6 through 12, it will be January 3rd through January 10th, of course, of 2022. So that's the K through 5 trimester, and that's the 6 through 12 semester. So K through 5, November 1st through the 10th, 6 through 12, January 3rd through the 10th, and we will be communicating the heck out of that through all of our outlets.
Okay, and with that being said, I'm going to look for a motion to approve the May minutes and put those in our organization archives. Do you have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And all those in favor of approving the minutes recorded from our May 20th, 2021 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much, and we will move to put those in our archive for May 20th, 2021. And without any last questions or any details from anyone, we are going to end our very first back in person meeting at 1:29. We are 1 minute early.
I know, look at us.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much for all being here. There was one virtual meeting where we were like slightly early.
Yeah,
And I remember it was the one that was going to be early and then we were.
Yeah.
But it was for a really good reason. I can't remember what it was.
It's 3 years when you grow.
We'll have to make sure of that in a minute.
No, you guys get the emails anyway.
Are you sure? Because when you're putting those through, you might forget.
No, I have them in groups, so I because in Google, you can make groups, so I have 21 and 22 boards. I type that in your email, all pop up. You might get it multiple times, because you're in.
Oh, I get that.